Imagine this, a house barely the size of a garage. Just enough room for a bed, a sink, a desk, a window. And yet, it's all over your feed. From minimalism influencers to off-grid nomads, from van life vloggers to eco-conscious families, tiny homes have become the new dream. But why? Why would anyone trade a spacious apartment or suburban house for something barely bigger than a shipping container? At first glance, it looks like a step backward, smaller, simpler, stripped down. But beneath that surface, tiny homes represent something deeper, a quiet rebellion against a world that's become too loud, too fast, too much. In an age of rising housing prices, constant comparison, and lifestyles bloated by things we barely use, more and more people are asking, what do I really need? And more importantly, what do I want my life to feel like? Tiny homes don't just offer shelter, they offer a chance to rewrite the rules of space, of success, of what enough really means. But is this movement a genuine shift or just another aesthetic trend dressed up as freedom? That's what we're about to explore. A dream shaped by reality. At the heart of the tiny home movement lies something very real: the soaring cost of housing. In cities across the world, the dream of owning a home has quietly slipped out of reach for millions. Prices have climbed faster than wages. Spaces have shrunk, but expectations haven't. And for many young adults, the idea of buying a traditional house feels more like a fantasy than a plan. So when someone stumbles upon a beautiful, compact home, a home they could actually afford, it ignites something powerful. Not just the hope of ownership, but the hope of belonging somewhere. Tiny homes turn the question around. Instead of how much can I buy, it becomes, what do I really need to feel at home? That shift is seismic. Owning a home has always been a symbol of security, of adulthood, of having made it. But when the symbol becomes inaccessible, people begin creating new symbols. A tiny home, in this sense, becomes more than shelter. It becomes a quiet statement. I may not have a mansion, but I have a space that's mine. I don't need more, because I know what matters. And in a world where debt weighs heavily on every decision, where young people are told they must sacrifice decades to own a house, tiny homes offer a shortcut. Not to wealth, but to ownership with dignity. Still, this solution isn't without its trade-offs. And as we'll see next, living small often comes with challenges that don't fit in a floor plan. When the walls start to close in, living in a tiny home sounds peaceful, until it isn't. Social media often shows us the polished version, the soft lighting, the hidden storage, the quiet cup of coffee by the window. But what it doesn't show are the mornings when you bump your elbow getting out of bed. The nights when one small argument feels enormous because there's nowhere to walk away. In a space under 20 square meters, everything is close. Your bed, your kitchen, your partner, your stress. Tiny homes demand discipline. Every object must earn its place. Every purchase comes at a cost. Not just in money, but in square inches. That pressure builds, not just in cluttered corners, but in your mind. For couples, even the strongest relationships can be tested. There is no spare room for silence, no hallway to cool off. Privacy shrinks, and so does patience. And for families, when a baby arrives, the rhythm of life becomes louder, messier, more chaotic. A single spilled drink, a toy left in the wrong spot, and suddenly the whole house feels too full to breathe. That's when a subtler danger begins to form. Mental compression. It's not about square footage anymore. It's about the space your thoughts are allowed to roam. You can't dream wide when your walls are this close. You can't think freely when there's no corner to retreat to. You can't always feel calm when your brain is doing cartwheels just to feel okay. Psychologists call this compression fatigue, the silent stress of constantly adjusting, of having no buffer between yourself and the world around you. And here lies the paradox. You chose this life to feel free, but now you feel trapped, not by the world outside, but by the very home that was meant to liberate you. Living small, thinking big. And yet not everyone feels trapped. For many, the very constraints of tiny living become the doorway to something greater. Because once you've pared everything down, once you've given away the things you thought you couldn't live without, you begin to notice what's been buried beneath the clutter. Clarity, time, presence. When you own fewer things, you clean less, you buy less, you worry less. Suddenly, your weekends aren't spent shopping for more furniture. They're spent outside, with your kids, with yourself. Tiny living becomes a form of liberation, not because you have less, but because you want less. And in a strange twist, the smaller your house becomes, the wider your world starts to feel. Many tiny homeowners speak of a shift, from consumption to connection, from decorating rooms to building memories. When space is limited, your decisions become intentional. You eat what you need, you keep what you love, you make peace with enough. Some take it further, living off-grid, growing their own food, building homes on wheels that let them chase the sun across seasons. For them, tiny homes aren't a limitation. They're permission to live on their own terms, to redefine what success looks like, to stop chasing approval and start building a life that feels quietly meaningful. And perhaps most powerfully, they create room. Not just in square feet, but in their inner life. Room to breathe, room to slow down, room to hear the thoughts that get drowned out in the noise of more. This isn't to say tiny living is for everyone. It's not. But for those who choose it, not to escape, but to live more deliberately, tiny homes become more than houses. They become sanctuaries. A pause or a path. Tiny homes are trending, not just online, but in the hearts of people searching for something simpler. And yet, we must ask, is this a sustainable lifestyle or just a temporary escape? Because when housing becomes unaffordable, when urban life becomes overwhelming, when burnout becomes the norm, people look for relief. Tiny homes offer it. Lower costs, fewer obligations, a chance to breathe. But if simplicity is forced, if people turn to tiny living not out of choice but out of desperation, then this isn't minimalism. It's survival. And that changes everything. A home should be a place of dignity, not a box we shrink into when the world becomes too heavy. We must look beyond the floor plans, beyond the clever storage hacks, beyond the aesthetic minimalism. Because the real issue isn't about how many square feet you have. It's about how much space you feel you're allowed to take up in your life. If a tiny home empowers someone to reclaim their time, their values, their sense of peace, then it's not small at all. It's expansive. But if society pushes people into corners, strips them of options, and tells them to be content with less while offering no way out, then we've failed to understand the difference between simplicity and sacrifice. So maybe the real question isn't, can you live in a tiny home? Maybe it's, what kind of life do you want to build? And how much space do you truly need to build it?